Guy takes advantage of my little sister's disability, and I snap. Context. My little sister, henceforth known as Holly, is mute. She can actually whisper a little, but it takes a lot of effort on her part. She's been mute ever since she was 5, when she lost her ability to speak in an accident. She's very smart, and she's a good-looking kid. At the time of these events, she was 16, and I was 21. Me and my sister lived together in an apartment. Because my mother is a Roma, who isn't well suited to take care of a teenager. She has our twin kid siblings, but not my sister and I. My dad is distant from the family, so helping my sister through high school falls to me. I work at a car parts shipping company, so I get paid just enough to get by. Because of our relatively poor living situation and my sister's inability to speak, she gets bullied at school. Generally, it isn't much of a problem, but in the few months leading up to these events, she was having increased problems with it. Build up. At that time, Holly was 16, but she was a sophomore in high school due to failing a year in middle school. She refuses to take special ed courses now because they didn't help her at all. Because she's good looking and is older than most of her class, she gets attention from juniors and seniors alike. And it's mostly negative attention. But there was one guy, who I will refer to as Dio from now on. He's the villain of this story, who treats her really nicely. He's a senior, and at the time is 18. He repels bullies from her because he's a tall, handsome, tough guy, and bullies don't want to mess with him. I don't interfere with them because my sister's visibly happy when she comes home from school and whenever she's around him. I didn't let them hang out alone together, but supervised them hanging out a few times. Anyway, King crims in a few months, and she stops coming home happy. She isn't hanging out with him anymore either. Although I ask her multiple times, she won't tell me anything about it. I confront him about it, and he evades the topic. At this point, I'm suspicious, but I don't know what to be suspicious of. Researching. I'm getting more and more worried about Holly. So I go to a counsellor, an assistant principal, to ask about her activities at school. From what I learn, she still spends all her time near Dio at school. I find this strange since she doesn't seem happy anymore. This is where the illegal stuff starts. A few days later, I invite Holly and Dio on a dinner night to Olive Garden. No one can resist Olive Garden. While we're there, I do two things that are completely illegal. 1. I steal his phone, which I've seen the password to, and 2. I read his texts and emails. Anything I can do to find out what's happened between them. I don't find what I'm looking for, but I do find out that he drinks and smokes weed with his friends on weekends. This will be relevant later. A few days later, I find his phone in the laundry and say, must have ended up in one of our coats by accident. I know for a fact he got it back because he called me to thank me for having Holly return it. I still didn't have what I was looking for, so I went back to the school and used his previous texts as grounds to check CCTV for any suspicious activity. There wasn't anything suspicious by school standards, but there was something that caught my eye. It was my sister going to the central bathroom in the school, and him going to the boys' room of the same bathroom about a minute later. The bathrooms are separated by a wall, but there's a janitorial closet that opens into both bathrooms, and it's completely in the blind zone of anyone walking into the bathrooms, let alone the CCTV cameras. At this point, I began to suspect that something was happening between them in that bathroom. And I was the only one with a closet like that, and if memory served me, the closet didn't have a proper lock. It just locked from the outside on both sides. Boiling point. Now that I suspected something, I confronted Holly about it. She broke down crying, and after 15 minutes of consoling, she shakily signed to me something that made my blood boil. Apparently, it was far worse than I expected. I had thought they were going in there and doing drugs or something, since Dio was the kind of guy who would pull that kind of thing. As it turns out, according to Holly, He brought her in there one day, closed the doors, held her down, and raped her. He told her that he would know if she told anyone, and he would hurt her if she did. Because she physically could not scream for help, or make any kind of loud noise for that matter, he got away with it, and the worst part is, he was threatening her into meeting with him every couple of days and doing that to her. I was livid. My first instinct was to call the police, but I realized that there was no evidence except the testimony of a mute girl. I wouldn't be satisfied with police intervention anyway. The first thing I did was call Holly in for a week from school. Family emergency could get them a week of excused absences easily, thankfully. The next thing I did was find out where he lived. After that, I planned the most brutal revenge I could think of. Highly illegal revenge. My first step was to break into his house. It turns out his parents go out a lot, and he leaves to smoke and drink with his friends. I knew from reading his texts that there was a spare key on top of the porch light in the backyard. That Saturday, I scoped out the place and waited for everyone to leave. I then began phase 1 of my revenge. I went into his house through the back door and found his room. I smashed his PC, stole his wallet, and pissed on his bed. Then, I poorly hid 2 small bags of weed in his house. I have a friend who grows. Finally, to hide the fact that it was targeted, I tossed up the rest of the house, but didn't take anything. I then went to a Starbucks and used the Wi-Fi and Dio's debit card. He didn't have credit to purchase a bunch of sex toys in his name and send them to his house. I then left his wallet sitting near a homeless man sleeping on a park bench. Next, I contacted his parents and told them I had seen their son drinking and smoking with a group of teenagers. They were furious, which leads me to believe that wasn't the first time something like that had happened. Finally, I went to the back road and he walked in his way home from his drinking parties, which I had found out from a text from one of his friends. I waited for 2 hours in some bushes for him to walk by, and then, wearing sunglasses and hoodie, jumped him. I demanded his money and phone, although I knew he didn't have his wallet. I kept one hand in my hoodie pocket, pointing it like I had a gun, which he believed. He handed over his phone and ran away. I then finished up my plan by using his phone, which I still have the password to send an email to the school from his school email, confessing to raping my sister in the janitorial closet multiple times, as well as possessing drugs on school grounds and drinking alcohol when he was underage. Then I snapped his phone on my knee and went home. Aftermath. My sister went back to school the following Monday, armed with a can of mace I bought her. Dia wasn't at school, and she was called in by her counselor. She confessed, and he was charged with rape, underage drinking, and illegal drug possession. On top of that, his parents completely disowned him, and he was expelled from school. Sadly, this story doesn't have a completely happy ending. This whole ordeal sent Holly into a downward spiral. Her grades fell behind, and she barely smiled. In March of 2018, she attempted suicide by cutting herself, and it was pure luck that I found her in time. She's getting better now, but the emotional trauma will probably affect her for life. I pray to whatever cruel gods are out there that he gets a taste of his own medicine in prison. I'm terribly sorry you and Holly have to go through that, and I really hope she's doing better now. And I hope that in some way karma will get him back, and it will, trust me. And Holly will become a better person, and Holly will be all the better for it, believe me. Please be there for her and everything will be okay. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Originals for more videos like this. We upload a video each day, so stay tuned.